Chad Gable and Shane McMahon in a backstage setting. Shane informs Chad about Elias's injury. Gable assumes, for whatever reason, that he's going to get a first-round bye. Or not a first-round bye, but you know what I mean. That he's going to get a bye into the finals. Which, I don't know why the hell he would say that, as the babyface. And that whole thing just did not make any sense. Why he would say that. It made him look like a coward, and it made him look like he just wanted a free ride into the finals. So it should have been something different. So that made no sense at all. And Shane informs him that he will find an opponent later on in the night for Gable to face, with the winner going to the finals of the King of the Ring. So, later in the night, Shane goes into the locker room where we have Apollo Crews and Matt Hardy standing there talking to each other. So, Matt Hardy does still exist. That was surprising. But Shane McMahon comes in looking for Chad Gable, doing the, I'm looking for Chad Gable, but I can't seem to see him, as he's standing right in front of him, because you see he is slightly shorter than you. So stupid. We'll get to more of how stupid the short stuff is when I go through this whole thing, but yeah. Shane informs Gable that he found him an opponent and that Elias approved of this opponent. And so Shane walks out of the shot and then walks back in the shot, and it's just like, ta-da, it's me. It was me all along, Gable. So, for one, Gable sold this like he was scared, which pissed me off. Like, Gable had no personality at all through, all of these segments. He was just like, yeah, whatever. Like he was fucking Orange Cassidy or something. There was nothing. He did not hardly say a word. So now, later on in the night, Shane McMahon has bitch boy Kevin Owens in his office and gives him a referee shirt to be the ref for he and Gable's match, and essentially saying that he'll lift his fine if he helps him win. And he didn't say it in those words. I think he said he would reconsider it, which is what he told him to begin with. So, no reason to trust that. So then, in the main event of this show, it comes down to Chad Gable versus Shane McMahon, with the special guest referee being Kevin Owens. And right away, Chad Gable hits the Chaos Theory German suplex. Owens does a fast count for the pin, and Chad Gable wins immediately. But you looked, and there was still 10 or more minutes left on that show, so you knew that something was going to happen. So Shane then gets out of the ring, grabs a mic, and says, no, this match is now 2 out of 3 falls. But he leaves Owens as the ref. So, with Shane being an authority figure, why wouldn't he just stack the deck more in favor of himself and have somebody else other than Kevin Owens who just fast counted him out of the match? And Shane didn't even seem to care about that, so that immediately made no sense. And then, when we restart this 2 out of 3 falls match, Gable rolls up Shane with a crucifix, but Owens doesn't count. And then Shane rolls up Gable and gets a fast count, but kicks out. What the hell? Why did Owens fast count Shane in the first match, but then when he restarted it, Owens suddenly decided to help Shane? This made no sense. There was no consistency in what Owens was doing, or even what Shane was doing, to not see what happened in the first fall and do something different. So this all made no sense. There was no consistency. The match gets restarted. Like I said there, the roll-ups happen. Gable hits a moonsault, but Owens does a slow count. Shane gets a chair in. Owens tries to stop him, so Shane hands him the chair to allow him to dispose of it, so he would turn his back to Shane, about to go for a low blow. Which, why he needs to turn his back when he's helping Shane anyway, I don't know. But Shane goes for a low blow, but Gable counters it into an ankle lock. Shane eventually taps out. He was in this thing for far too long. But he eventually taps out. And Owens indeed calls for the bell. So, Owens went from helping Gable in the first match to trying to screw over Gable in the second match, but then in the end still called for the bell on the submission. So, I don't really understand it. Like, I get the point was supposed to be that he was conflicted, but you didn't do that in the first one. He just immediately fast counted Shane. So I don't understand the whole point in this. And after the bell, Owens tells Shane that, I don't know what I was supposed to do. You tapped out. And, they did that whole thing. Owens goes to leave, but Shane attacks him, lays him out from behind, and then grabs a mic and simply says, "You're fired." And then he gets in Owens' face and just keeps saying that you're fired, you're fired, you're fired. This whole thing is so dumb and made no sense why Owens went from screwing Shane in the first match to then helping him to then counting the submission. Owens looks like a complete bitch. Coming off the high that he had throughout the whole night, or not through the whole night, but the whole angle with Shane in the first place, leading to the SummerSlam match, where he was probably the most over guy on that SummerSlam card, to now where we are now. And it's completely halted any momentum Owens had, and I don't think that they will be able to recover that. But, I mean, they can recover it. Like, this can be turned around, but either way, it hasn't been a good storyline, and there's just been no need for it. It would have been easier if this just ended after SummerSlam. But, if they were going to fire him, I don't know why they didn't just have him lose at SummerSlam. Because his career was on the line, so you could have gotten the same result and not have him back down. And if they weren't going to do that, if Shane was going to fire him anyway, then they should have just had Owens stick to his guns in this match and screw over Shane to begin with, like he did in the first match. But he did not hold his ground, and instead he just backed down like a bitch, and then still got fired. So I don't know what that's supposed to do for Owens. So that sucks. That absolutely 100% sucks. And now we have to go through the point with, like, the John Cena retirements and firings that he's going to come back. It's just a matter of when. And, now, people are, like, speculating, like, oh, he could go and be on the first NXT show on USA next week. Yeah, but he was fired. So, I don't know if that means that Shane was only firing him from SmackDown, but that doesn't seem to really make any sense. If Shane is a McMahon and can fire him in whole, then I would think that's what that meant. And the more damaging thing that I think was done here is what it did to Chad Gable. Because this, by all means, should have been the night about Chad Gable. But instead, he was completely overshadowed by this angle and just was the third wheel in it. And really, this whole tournament hasn't done Gable a ton of favors. And even though they're pushing him, even though he's winning and now he's in the finals, he won his first two matches with roll-ups. One against Shelton Benjamin, which if you need to fluke your way to a victory over Shelton Benjamin in 2019, then I can't really take you that seriously. And then the other one against Andrade, which was better. It was a good match. But he still, it was in a fluky manner. It wasn't decisive. And then for this, he eventually, overcame the odds and beat Shane and tapped him out. But in the first match, he won by a fast count. And, a win over Shane, in theory, should mean something with all of the guys that Shane has beaten over these past few months, including Roman Reigns, of all people. But it still doesn't, because it's Shane. It doesn't work for me. I don't really take someone that more seriously because they beat Shane McMahon. I'm sorry. So, the other thing that has not helped Gable throughout this tournament is that they've made the whole storyline and the whole thing, the underdog storyline, being about Chad Gable being short. And it's not like Gable has done anything throughout this tournament to shut that criticism down. He hasn't had the moment where he's like, I may be short, but I'm better at wrestling than you are. I have a legit amateur background, and I can tap you out with ease. He tapped out Shane, and that was a decisive enough win, but it's Shane. And so, not big on that, because it's essentially just been, you're short, but now you're fluking into wins now. Rather than focusing on how good of a wrestler that Chad Gable is. And, they easily could have done it differently. And I think the lack of any sort of personality or babyface fire that Chad Gable has had in his segments has done him no favors. Looking at the promos with Shane this week, where he was just practically mute and had the same facial expression throughout all of them, to the one with Samoa Joe last week, where Joe was calling him mentally weak, and, he can tell that the short jokes bother him, and he's mentally weak and all that. And, Chad just stands there and takes it and does not have a rebuttal. It just makes him look like a joke. And it makes him look like a joke that has managed to fluke his way into victories. So, I don't care for this. I love Chad Gable. I think Chad Gable is a fantastic wrestler. I don't like how they've done this. And, if you would have told me before the tournament that, they were going to go in with the Chad Gable being the underdog and making it all the way to the finals, I would have thought, wow, that'll be awesome. But they've made it about height rather than wrestling. And then him playing the third wheel in the Shane McMahon and Kevin Owens saga tonight, it all did him no favors. And now we get the King of the Ring final, which will be Chad Gable going against Baron Corbin. They said at one point that this was going to be on Raw, but it's always been said, throughout the whole tournament, that this is going to finish at Clash of Champions. So now there's a conflict of when the match is even going to take place. So I don't know. I don't know why you wouldn't do it at the pay-per-view, other than you already have so many freaking matches. So maybe they just want to cut time. But being that they've promoted this whole thing to finish at Clash of Champions for the last month, I don't know why they would just change it at the last hour to having it on Raw. That doesn't make a lot of sense to me. And, on a pay-per-view, it would give Corbin and Gable a lot more time and no commercials to actually, really have a good match. Which, I expect it to be a good match, because Corbin has actually been really good throughout this tournament. And I'm not sure I want him to win, but I expect him to win. I expect Corbin to end up beating Gable in the end. And I think they think that they've done Gable a lot of favors by just getting him to the finals, so they feel like it won't be a big deal for him to lose. But I don't feel like that's ultimately true. And, you know, like, I'm not all against King Baron Corbin. Like if you're gonna put that gimmick on someone, I think that Corbin can pull it off. And I've been into Corbin lately, so I'm not totally against it. I do maintain the opinion that I had on last night's review that there are guys that could have used it more than Corbin, like Ricochet, Ali, Buddy Murphy, Andrade, Cedric Alexander was a big one that I thought could have used going to the finals in this. But, you know, Corbin isn't the worst case scenario. And at least we are not going to get Baron Corbin versus Elias. Which, Elias, I don't know if he actually got hurt or if it was a storyline to get Shane in there. But either way, we don't have a Baron Corbin versus Elias or a Baron Corbin versus Shane McMahon ending to this tournament.